Hey, what up? What up, my guys? Welcome to another show, man. We could, man. I can listen to that song all day, man. What's up, my guy Moses in the chat, man? I hadn't seen you in a while. Put that dirt jersey on for me, please. Regardless of that, man. NFL free picks, man. With my guy Shark, the Jay and Shark show. What's up with you, my brother? Everything cool with you?
Yeah, hanging out, taking a breath here. We're back, round two, and we love to do it. We were just saying off the air, 9th show out of 10. We missed 1 week. We're committed to growing an NFL channel as well. And of course, it's a multifaceted brand. It's a lifestyle brand. It's a commentary brand. Jay made a great tweet earlier about, we're trying to teach you guys how to handicap, teach you how to live, because handicapping is the analysis behind it, and it is the lifestyle. And I've said this for 4 years now, 9 words of lifestyle. You know what that means? It means taking care of your mind and your body so you can think right and act right emotionally within sports betting. And of course, within the NFL, you got to think right and you got to act right, Jay. So lead the way. Let's get in there. Let's talk about a little Thursday night football tonight, and I believe 10 to 11, maybe even 12 games on Sunday.
There's a boatload of them, man. But yeah, let's talk about this game tonight, man. We're going to the streets of Carolina here. We got the Panthers getting 2.5 points versus the Atlanta Falcons. Somewhat of a little revenge game as well. These two teams just played a couple of weeks ago as well, where the Falcons outlasted the Panthers in that one. I believe the Panthers did cover those. Shark, I believe, called that one correctly. Whether it was just a lean, he did lean the Panthers in that one. But you think the Panthers can get a win now? It's kind of crazy. PJ Walker was kind of benched. They put Baker Mayfield in there, and they kind of left the door, maybe saying that he might start this week, but they're saying still going to go with Walker here. So how are you looking at this game, my brother?
Yeah, there's a lot of counter angles here tonight. Originally, when I was looking at this game, I did think Atlanta would be the look. And the key point here is just looking at Atlanta situationally on the road. Of course, we've talked about this for weeks, starting from week 1. This team was 6-0 ATS. And I said they were going to crater, and I said they were going to crater starting with the Cincinnati game, and it was 35-17 Cincinnati on the road. Key point here, though, that was as an underdog. The only time this team has been favored on the road this year, this is very specific stuff. Week 3 at Seattle, they were laying 2 to 3 points, and they did win the game 27-23. At that point in time, I don't think we had any clue how good Seattle was going to be this season. So we thought, okay, we got Seattle and we got Atlanta, 2 teams on heaters for a couple weeks to start the season, whatever. And it doesn't necessarily appear that Seattle's going anywhere right now. So I think that gives a lot more credential to the Falcons covering at Seattle. The counterpoint in this game is, of course, a small window divisional revenge game. And we did mention this going back 2 weeks. We did say we thought Carolina would cover on the road at plus 4.5, and it would just be a tight Falcons win inside of 3 or 4 points there. So you come back here, you get a revenge game, and you get an environment where Carolina is actually 2-0 ATS at home in the division this year. Early season, it was actually my top spot on the board in week 3, 2-unit special, a +3 cover and outright win against the Saints before the Saints, I believe, went to London the following week. And then, of course, they did beat Tom Brady in recent history, I believe 3 or 4 weeks ago at home. So the point I'm trying to make here is this game is very difficult. I really like buying the Falcons as a road favorite. I think that line sustainability is showcasing something that could continue. And I do think that Carolina as a home dog in the division, already 2-0 and a revenge game, stands tall here, Jay. I don't like this game officially, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to give a lean here tonight.
Yeah, that's a good point. Man, I want to lean the Falcons here. I don't have a plan on this game, so I'm not going to waste your time. But I was thinking that the Falcons could get it done in this one, especially like that was the whole thing from me taking the Chargers last week. I knew they were probably going to drop that one. If they win this game, that's going to be huge for their season success, in my opinion. If they go 2-0 versus the division opponent, it's going to be big for the Falcons there. So I think they have all the motivation in the world. And even last week versus the Chargers team, I know they had a bunch of guys out, but regardless, they were coming off a bye week, so they knew that their guys were going to be out, and those backup receivers basically in practice all week with the first team reps. So but even still in a fade spot, the possible look ahead, all that Falcons still took them down to the wire and really could have won that game if it wasn't for the huge fumble return over there as well. So I think this Falcons team is high right now. They're a lot better than people thought as well. So yeah, me personally, I would be surprised if the Falcons lost this game. If I had a free play, I would be taking the Falcons, but I'm no expert. You don't have to listen to me, and I didn't put money on it. So but I was leaning towards the Falcons for this Thursday night football game, Shark. Let's go over here to the streets of Tampa Bay here, my guy. We got the Bucs. No, we're not going to street Tampa Bay. We're going to Germany here, and I got it right there as well, man. Bucs land 3, basically 2.5. All the threes are basically like plus 100. So it's either taking minus 2.5, minus 120, or plus 3 at plus odds. But what do you think, Shark? Can the Seahawks take this on the road here? I got to look at like the globe and shit. I got to see how far, like, which is Germany closer to Seattle or is it closer to Tampa Bay? Which team has the shorter flight in theory?
A little geography lesson here on a suddenly so casual thirsty Thursday. I got my cup of coffee. I should have cracked a glass of wine for a little geography here. But I do believe Seattle is farther from Munich than Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, you're in Florida, you're going across, going north. Seattle, you're across country first, and then you're going all the way out. I don't know if that's going to have a huge to-do in this game, really. I think this game is more so just an analysis point from where the Bucs are right now. And I think it was fairly well credentialed just how lackluster this Bucs team was going back to last week. Through 8 weeks, 3-5 straight up. We're coming in at that point off a loss sequence, 5 out of 6. And I think people were calling for Todd Bowles. They're questioning Tom Brady. Did he make the wrong decision? What's going on with Giselle? And I think ultimately, from a psychological environment, obviously the marriage going awry is just not what you want to see. But I think he seems to maybe be moving on from it a little bit in terms of clarity. Not so much that he's over the girl and the relationship and the family, but he has a decision now, and it's clear. So he can at least move on, and he knows what's going on going forward. And you go back to last week, Sunday, November 6th, against the hat I have on here, and really a late win, 16-13. And, you know, that game was in the balance. That was a late drive to get there and push the spread. Obviously, sharp spreads in the NFL. But I do think when you look at this number and you look at Seattle going on the road, if you can get Tampa Bay at minus 2.5 here, I think you're looking at the sharp side of the game, because obviously when you have a team that's been lackluster coming up a little bit versus a Seattle team that's scorching hot, it does speak to the law of averages reversing for both of these teams. And one final point here, when you really go back in terms of the Bucs home games that they lost, and I want to make a point on this, home games, because neutral leans more to a home game than it does a road game. And those games, win against the Rams, tight loss against Baltimore, which is a classy team, playoff team, a win against Atlanta, which again at the time we thought was lackluster, but they were up 21-0 in that game. So I think that was, you know, fairly impressive. Blowout loss against Kansas City, who might be the best team in the sport, 1-1A or 1C, and then a Green Bay tight one. So I think this team is due to come up. I think, again, one point that people fail to acknowledge here, one additional week into January does make a difference in the calendar. Teams can coast a little bit more early season now, knowing the season is longer, whereas in yesteryear, every week really did matter. I think it makes a difference here. 9:30 a.m., I know a couple guys in my Circa Millions are looking at the Bucs. I don't love the Bucs by any means here. It's not going to be an official play for me, but I would advise people not to just autopilot what seems to be the obvious side in taking Seattle points.
No, I'm with you. I was just about to say, yeah, the Seattle's won and covered 4 straight. They do seem to still keep getting disrespected here, but obviously, winner of the Bucs going to really turn up. This was supposed to be a top tier team, and they're just not doing it right now. So they're 0-6-1 against the spread last 7 games. The Bucs are, and yet they're still open up as the favorite here. So that's my whole thing with the NFL, man. We know at some point it's going to flip. You just don't know when. I agree. I follow a lot of sharp guys as well. I mean, they're on the Bucs here minus the 2.5. It's starting to go up to 3. This one line opened up at 1.5, I believe, and it's starting to get sharp steam. It's not gonna, when you got the public side going the other way and it's already a public dog, it kind of tells you that maybe the Bucs are the right side here. If I'm betting this game, it's definitely Bucs or nothing. And I do think what's going on. Sorry, you over there jamming, man, but. No, but I do think the scheduling, like if you have to fly an extra 4 hours, that's not something that's good or going to help you, in my opinion. So if you got to fly across country, which is at least 4 hours, you see what I'm saying? That's not good. I think that even hurts Seattle even more, in my opinion. So like I say, a little geography lesson there, but whichever team has the furthest trip with both teams, fine. I would definitely lean towards the one that's been more lackluster, getting their quality check, knowing that they need to bounce back here, Shark. Let's go over here to the streets of Kansas City, where we have the Chiefs laying 9.5 points versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars finally got off the schneid last week. They were down 17-0, came all the way back. Char, do you think they bring some of that momentum into this game?
Yeah, I do. And I think that's a key point you mentioned. Last week, obviously winning a game, which was just another game with the Raiders just not being able to play a full 60 minutes. And I had said on the show last week, I thought the Raiders would work specifically in the first half. And that was spot on. This team literally cannot play two halves of football in the same game. And, when you really look at this, you start to really look at what Jacksonville has done this year. Jacksonville lost 5 straight games leading into last week's game, all by one possession, and just tough stuff. Road game at Philadelphia. Philadelphia obviously undefeated, the class of the NFC. Road game in the division at Indianapolis. Again, they were right down to the wire. There was a late touchdown for Indianapolis to cover that instead of push. Tough loss at home against the Giants, who proved to be a lot better than people thought. Tough loss in London. Final possession loss to Russell Wilson. And a really lackluster sandwich game on week 5, home game against Houston. Houston, for whatever reason, in the division just plays them tough in these situations. So you go to a corollary spot, which I think is very specific here. Their only road game outside of the division within the AFC was in week 3, and it was against the AFC West. It was in San Diego, it was in Los Angeles against the ex-San Diego Chargers, now LA Chargers. And it was a blowout win, 38-10. And I think that they're going to show upward movement. When you see a team lose 5 in a row, all tight games, that doesn't mean they suck. It means that their dispersion point just didn't lacked efficiency to the final product. And they're going to come up. And we said this last week when I suggested that you should be taking Tennessee on Sunday Night Football to cover against the Chiefs. The Chiefs just do not function well at home on inflated figures. This is 3 to 4 years now, ever since they started getting what I call championship lines, and that applies to all sports, they just stopped covering. And you saw what we said last week, but it's very specific stuff. Kansas City on the road at the NFC, for whatever reason, gets on the road, gets a little bit more of their mojo, they get a little more focused, whatever they need to do, and they hammered the Bucs, the Cardinals, and the Niners. Those were their 3 best ATS spots this year by a mile, and it was very specific stuff. Road NFC, home games, inflated figures, very sustainable fade stuff. They don't function well here. I think Jacksonville keeps this game close. And Jay, similar to what you were saying about the Mavericks last night before they lost to Orlando, they were trending towards a loss. I think Kansas City is hanging on the edge here. Kansas City should have lost last week to Tennessee and Malik Willis. This could be an outright loss. I don't dislike a little what Gunn says, sprinkle on a money line for a little Jaguars here.
Is that how he says it?
Oh, yeah. A lot of money line.
My guy Guns, man, like little cupcake sprinkle, man. This is what I like to do. Like you got some salt and pepper or something. But you make some good points there, Shark. So, and what it's going to come against as well on the inflated lines versus the teams that you don't really care to get up for, right? So that I feel like that's the main phase spots where it looks like, oh, okay, they're laying 10, laying 9.5 here against a bad team. Those are the teams where they're likely going to not give their best effort for it, like the Mavs last night for versus the Magic. And they talk about it all the time. But sorry, I just think it's interesting that we're really starting to understand the psychology of these players. It's a totally new generation here. They look at things a lot. They think things are going to be easy. So when they come in, things are easy or not. It's not even looking at it like it's easy. When you're not motivated, it's hard to cover these big spreads. I agree with you. I'd be looking at Jacksonville here, and I think this line was at 10. It's down to 9.5. If you wait, might get a 10 here. But and also the Jags learning to close games, Shark. They could possibly be a backdoor cover or like a 3 or 4 point game. Jags could, like you said, might have a chance to go drive a touchdown and win this game. I wouldn't be a bit surprised there, Char. I'm with you. I lean Jags here, man. Doing this show, I only got one play. I might end up with more plays, man, Mr. Around guy Sharp. But I like the look there. I believe I was talking with somebody else about this play as well. Lean Jags here, Sharp. I'm right there with you. Let's go over to the streets of New York. We got the Giants laying 4.5 points versus the Houston Texans. Giants coming off that bye week, Char. Obviously they were red hot. They were teetering on a loss. Finally had it right before the bye week. Do you think they come out of here with some mojo versus this Texans squad?
It's tough. This is tough stuff. But I do think bringing it back to a play, I believe you had early season, a home game against Carolina, where they did cover the 2.5, pushed at 3 or somewhere around there. And then later on, or no, you had the game against Chicago, excuse me.
I had Bears.
-3. I think that the Giants do play well outside the division at home. I mean, you don't have a lot of environments here. Or excuse me, you do. Now that I'm looking at it a little bit more in more detail. Their only home loss of the year was against Dallas in the division on Monday Night Football in week 3. Outside of the division at home, of course, they had one in London. We're not going to count that. Week 2 against Carolina, 19-16, 2.5-3 push or cover. Week 4 against Chicago, the one Jay had correctly. He had the Giants here -3, 20-12 cover. And week 6 against Baltimore, +5.5, 24-20, outright win as a dog and cover. So what you're really looking at here is an environment where this team as a home favorite outside of the division is 1-0-1 or 2-0 ATS. And I think you get a really good spot here off a bye, off really what was just a dead zone spot for them in week 8, traveling out west to Seattle. They had been in Florida the previous week. They had been in London 2 weeks prior to that. We suggested that game would be a Seattle take due to the Giants' travel. Now they get rested off the bye, and they catch Houston coming in here, honestly, in an environment that I think is similar to Chicago. We had discussed this numerous times when we talked about Chicago traveling on the road. Of course, they have improved immensely in the recent weeks, but Houston on the road, not very good scoring the football with Davis Mills. Obviously, their last road environment outside of the division was a blowout loss to Las Vegas. And we know Las Vegas is very inconsistent to maybe poor, if we can go that far. I think that's a reach, but maybe poor. And Vegas did hammer this team 38-20. And I think looking at all this as it comes together, the Giants would be the side in this game.
Yeah, my guy Jacob in the chat saying taking the comeback Giants on the Texans. Giants double result. He's basically saying they have to have the lead at the end of the first half and the full game. It's not a bad look. This line looks kind of short, man. I'm just wondering like what's going on here. It was at 5.5. It's coming down. Money coming in on the Texans. It looked like it opened up at around 5.5, and then since come down to 4.5. I'm just wondering, like, what do people like here in the Texans? In my opinion, it's just one screen. We don't know how true it is, but 54% of the tickets, 87% of the money on the Texans here. I know they can be scrappy here, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like the Giants might just should be laying 7 points here, in my opinion. So I'm not an expert, but this Giants look like the side here. I mean, the Texans they're probably one of the worst teams in the NFL, bro. They can play some good sticky defense. They can hang around, but we talk about scoring enough to keep up with the Giants here. I'm not sure how they do it, bro. What am I missing with this one?
You're not missing anything. I mean, like, I think, again, we don't really know who's betting this. Of course, we see market splits and we understand the psychology behind taking one side or the other. But, I mean, I always go back to this. Quote-unquote sharp action was taking the Cleveland Browns ATS every single week when they won 16. So it's whatever this may be, whatever angle this is, whoever's betting this, they just have an obsession with taking buy lows and underdogs. And I talk about this all the time. There is a buy low on an environment for a team until the average gets reset at the lower average. And then they're no longer regressing to the expected higher average that was the previous average. So I think now you readjust this down and you really go a little bit deeper here. Go to these out-of-division games on the road for Houston. Houston did cover week 2 at Denver, but they played poorly. They lost the game 16-9, and we actually had this for the loss, and Russell Wilson and the boys just couldn't score the football. But the whole point here is they lost the game by 7 points and scored 9. So if they're facing the Giants and the Giants only have to cover 4.5, Giants cover that environment. I had Chicago the following week in week 3, Sunday, September 25th. I got it at 2.5. I did cover this. Chicago, again, we just discussed this, who started the season very poorly, did cover against Houston at home. So this team outside of the division has laid 3 eggs. I just think this is a bad take on the underdog. I think it's just some sort of autopilot obsession with market evaluation and underdog line efficiency. I have no idea, really.
I'd heavily lean Giants there minus the 4.5. It's not that I think that it's easier or anything, but the Giants have shown us that they're not the same team of years past. You see what I'm saying? This Giants team, they finally have them a head coach over there. Daniel Jones is finally like he's trying to take steps at quarterback. They're throwing the ball downfield. He still got Barkley over there running over him. heavily lean to Giants in there for me, my guys. This is the only way I can look in that game. I'm sorry, but by all our power ratings, Texans are the worst team in the NFL. It's not saying they can't cover some games, but I don't think it comes here versus the Giants team coming off a bye week, coming off a loss as well. I think the Giants keep it going, and they have to keep it going in that tough NFC East over there, my guys. Let's go over here to the streets of Pittsburgh real quick, man. We have the Steelers getting 1.5 points, going with the Saints. The Saints land points here on the road, man. Damn, this is a down year for the Steelers. You got the Saints laying 1.5 points here on the road here. Steelers coming off a bye week, so they're the more rested team. Shark, you like anything here?
Yeah, I do. I'm not officially on this yet, but I'm looking at the Steelers with significance. And as you mentioned, Steelers off a bye week, but I do think a direct corollary here. And of course, we have to readjust how we evaluate the Steelers because they did make a quarterback change in week 4. That was in the second half, I believe, against the Jets. And then, of course, Kenny Pickett, his first road start, an obliteration loss in Buffalo in week 5. But
I was on that shit.
Yeah.
I had the Steelers.
I know. Remember we talked about that, and I said, I think the Bills might hammer this kid. And it was just whatever
Yeah.
the fuck. But
them.
Come back the next week. Key point here. The only out-of-division home game that Kenny Pickett has started in his career was week 6 against the Bucs of Tampa Bay. Not only a cover, an outright win. And what do you take away from that? Not only the fact that it was his only start outside the division in his entire career, it was also coming from the same division. It was an NFC South opponent. And you look at the Saints traveling here. The Saints have a weird schedule. The Saints had played a lot of home games early. And the Saints have a lot of road games coming up. So their schedule gets very difficult. If you don't count a game that was a neutral site game in London in week 4, week 5, home against Seattle. Week 6, home against Cincinnati. Week 8, home against Vegas. Week 9, home against Baltimore. 4 out of their last 5 games, home in the Dome. Anybody who follows this, and I think it's everybody who's watching this video, knows that Dome down there is a huge home field advantage. Great fan base, a lot of noise, tough to travel into. Now they go outside on the road to potentially cold weather in Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh here is really lining up to win this game this week.
That's a good point there, man. Yeah, I'm looking at right now. It's sitting somewhere around 37 degrees with 11 miles per hour. Yeah, so it's interesting what happens, how the weather is looking the day of. That's a really good point right there. That's something I like to do in football, Shark, especially NFL or in college as well. Things that other people are really not looking at. But yeah, taking a dome team or inside team, going play outside, especially somewhere where it's normally hot down south, going up there to the north where it's probably going to be cold as hell, windy, just a dry type of cold. That's a good look there, Shark. And obviously, we got to be honest. The Saints have been fairly lackluster this year. They do play teams close. We see how Minnesota's doing. They covered that spread as well. They only lost them by 3. I believe that was the London game. Then you come back and you beat Seattle. That was a close game as well. But still, they scored when they needed to late to cover that game as well. They kept it close versus the Bengals. We could say the Bengals are somewhat of a top-tier team. They could have won that game, but it just seemed like they don't really know how to finish games. I think that goes back to the coaching that you were talking about there, Shark. Steelers in need of a win as well. They're basically one of the same boats as Saints are. They need a win. They're lackluster this year. They're at the house coming off the bye, getting points as well. I could understand the lean to the Steelers here, Shark. You talking it out. It sounds nice to me as well, man. Let's go over here to the streets of Chicago. We have the Bears laying 3 points versus the Detroit Lions here, Shark. I'm not sure what to do with this game. So how are you looking at it?
Me either. This is one of the toughest games on the entire card. There's honestly quite a bit of access from a lot of the angles we discussed, but this game is just brutal. The one thing that really stood out to me here is that the Bears have owned the Lions in recent history, dating back to 2018. The Bears have won 7 out of the last 8. So this is like a generational bye here. Of course, teams that play twice within the same calendar year in the division. But when you really look at what's going on here, this is not an environment that Chicago has found themselves in yet this year. This is their first divisional home game. They do get Green Bay in week 13, and they do finish the season in January. And of course, we will be on this broadcast in 2023 talking about that game. And we appreciate you guys in the chat immensely against Minnesota. And so the point we're making here is home divisional games take on a unique environment competitively and against the spread. and we are data deficient here. This team has performed very well at home outside of the division. They are 3-1 against the spread, and their only non-cover came on a Thursday night football game against Washington, which we had Washington correctly in that one. I bought them last week correctly at +3.5 against Miami. I have a good feel for Chicago at home. If I was going to lean one direction or the other, I would lean Detroit here. I think Detroit has some upward movement in their system. I think Detroit has generational revenge. I think Detroit has a more energized coach, which can help to travel in these environments, particularly games in the division, not outside. And I do think one final point, we do have a reference point for Detroit as a divisional road dog. Week 3 at Minnesota, they did cover the game, 28-24 loss on a +7. And they were up significantly in that game. They were up 24-10 and melted the game away. So I think Detroit's going to come out here with a representative effort this week.
That's a good point there. And they've got some of their guys back as well. So a couple of their top receivers, they get Swift back as well. Hopefully those guys are healthy. You made some good points there. And I know overall, I kind of talked about it early season with the Bears. Obviously, they're in rebuilding mode. They went ahead and made a few trades as well. And I can kind of see the Lions, like you said, won this one a little bit more, especially when you've been owned by a team. We know that Bears coach is going. So I always say this, when a team owns them, maybe especially in the NFL when coaching really matters, maybe one coach just really owns the other coach or just knows this system well. But when you get a coaching change, that's when it can really flip for the team that's been cleaning up one team more than another, my guy. So I can understand the lean with the Lions. And no, I think it's going to be a good week here, Char. There's some good feels out here. Lions finally get off the schneid as well, get a big win versus Green Bay, probably with some momentum in here. They could definitely keep it going. I believe this is a winnable game for the Lions there, especially catching 3 there, Char. Some good points. Let's go over to the streets of Miami here, down to the streets of Miami, the hot streets. We got the Dolphins here laying 3.5 points versus the Cleveland Browns here, guys. Total sitting at 49. Shark, you like anything in this one?
This is the other game I think is tough. I don't have a ton of angles on this game. Of course, you get Miami coming in here showing signs, if we're going to go that direction, of an outright loss. Go back to week 7, non-cover at home against Pittsburgh, on the road at Detroit, cover, barely, push in a lot of markets on a 4, 31-27. Last week, non-cover at Chicago, 35-32. So what you're really getting here is a sequence of games that they didn't cover and are really kind of trending that direction. And you go back to the last time they had a 3-game winning streak, they did lose the next game on the road at Cincinnati, which does not necessarily apply here. But I do think this team is trending downward. You go to Cleveland. Cleveland's a bit of a tough read. Of course, Jacoby Brissett, a lot of things going on here. Truthfully, I don't really have a great angle on this game. I think this game is going to be one of those spots where, again, you see Miami on these 3.5 lines. It's just gamble zone stuff, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you'd wonder if the Browns maybe look ahead to the Bills, but you're probably not going to win that game. If the way that I'm looking at it, what if the Dolphins win 3 straight, lose 3 straight, then win 3 straight, then maybe they're not going to lose 3 straight because they got the Texans after this. But maybe they I like when teams are teetering on a loss. I like when we see that, because when you get that close, we know that winning isn't sustainable forever. It's tough to play at top quality level forever, especially against some of the bad teams as well. There's going to be games that you're going to drop, man. Brissett, I believe he only has like a few more weeks to try to prove himself. They did come out and say that Watson's going to start regardless his first week available, which I believe is December 4th versus Houston, right, Shark? Guys, don't take me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's when Watson can come back, December 4th. But regardless, next 2 after this are Buffalo and Tampa Bay. So this may be Brissett's best chance to try to look good before Watson come in. So they come in more rested as well off the bye week. That's definitely worth something here. Catching that 3 in the hook. Why can't the Browns keep this game close and maybe lose this game by 3? The Dolphins continue to either teeter on or lose on the loss. I think either the Dolphins win this one by 3 or they lose the game outright here, sorry, especially with the Browns needing to come up. They're not a bad team. They're starting to get Clowney and Myles Garrett back healthy as well after a car wreck. That's the teeth of the defense right there. If they can get to Tua and have him hurry him up, the Browns can win this game, in my opinion. They have to do it with defense, though. Or they have to do it with defense. I'd lean Browns there plus the 3.5, Shark. I couldn't talk anyone off in that one.
Just
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going through Cleveland a little more detail right now. I think you're right. I think this is going to be a Cleveland look. And I think what you're really looking at here, just like we just talked about how the Saints have not played a lot of road games, the Browns have not played a lot of road games either. They've only played 3, but I think this is very important stuff. All 3 of their road games finished inside of 3 points.
They did.
So if you look at plus 3.5 and you just cross-reference how they play versus an expected efficiency point on the road, it's pretty much right on your angle there at plus 3.5. And again, I think you start to go through their schedule. This team is 3-5. We just talked about Miami maybe teetering on the edge of a loss. I think that Cleveland is coming up in their efficiency. Obviously, you mentioned their defense is great. They're getting Deshaun Watson. I'm not sure what week he's coming back. It's either the game against Houston or the home game against Tampa Bay, but that's irrelevant to this. But if you really start to go through this, outside of a blowout loss to New England in week 6 at home, this team is right there. Week 1, at Carolina, outright win. Week 2, should have beaten the Jets. And again, we always say this, you got to readjust your expectations very quickly. The Jets are a lot better than people thought. When they blew that lead to the Jets, people thought, wow, they lost to the Jets. They blew a 2-touchdown lead late. No, the Jets are pretty damn good. Then they hammered Pittsburgh. Then they lost to Atlanta. Same thing in week 4. People thought Atlanta wasn't very good. Atlanta's better than people think. A tight loss to the Chargers, who are good, a tight loss to Baltimore, who's good, and a blowout win against Cincinnati. This team could be a lot better than 3-5. They face stiff competition. Miami's too hot. I think we're looking at Cleveland with some significance here.
Yeah, we're starting to look at them with significance. I think that's why we come on here talking out some games as well. We bouncing thoughts off each other. Might end up liking the play. I like the Browns plus the 3.5. Now that I think about it, some guys in the Westgate contest that I'm with as well, Marco D'Angelo, and so I believe they like the Browns as well. Marco is a real sharp guy with NFL. It's one thing I know. Yeah, Browns plus 3.5. That's the side there. Like I was just about to say that same thing, Shark. Outside the blowout loss versus New England, either they've won a game where it's been a tight game. So I think the Browns get it done here, man, plus the 3.5. Let's go over here to the streets of Buffalo real quick. We got the Bills laying 3.5 points. This line was at 6.5, come down 3.5. Obviously, with the Josh Allen news, he's what is he, sick? Or no, he's banged up. He got an elbow issue over there. They're getting him checked out. He obviously wants to play. He's not practicing right now, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. Vikings are absolutely red hot here. When are this team gonna lose a game, man? They come back on a plane. Hyped up, man. You got Cousins, got all the chains on, man. I love to see it, but you wonder when the Vikings are going to come down to earth a little bit, Shark. Will it be here?
I would think so, yeah. I do think so. And, of course, you get Buffalo last week off a loss, which I did suggest. I didn't say they would lose outright, but I said plus 11.5 Jets was definitely the side. And, again, you look at the only other loss they had this year, and this is where we start to find pattern recognition and real tendencies, at Miami. So, Buffalo has played 2 lackluster football games this year. Road divisional at Miami, road divisional at New York, scored 19 at Miami and 17 at New York. Basically the same game. Just a game where Josh Allen played what I would call irresponsible football. He just didn't take the game seriously. And you guys know I love Josh Allen. But that's not to say that over the course of a 4.5-month season, he's not going to have certain opponents he doesn't take as seriously. You saw how he balled at Kansas City. You saw how he balled at Baltimore in the rain. There's no reason a team is going to win outright at Baltimore and Kansas City and lose outright at Miami and the Jets. So you really get environmental analysis here. And the key point coming home, this is where this team gets turned the hell up. They've only played 3 home games this year. So, again, we're talking about schedule clusters. This is a team that's about to get a lot of home games down the stretch. But these 3 home games, Monday, September 19th, week 2, blowout win against Tennessee. We had that correctly. Week 5 against Pittsburgh, 38-3. Jay and I had disagreement there, but they did blow them out, 38-3. And then Sunday, October 30th, week 8, blowout backdoor cover by Green Bay. So I think what you're taking away from this is Buffalo first half at home is really the spot. They love to come out and juice the hell out of the game. Of course, you have to monitor Josh Allen. And this is a problem. He snapped his arm somehow, final drive of the game. He was kind of whipping it like sidearm or something. He got clipped, and it looked like he could have really messed up his elbow. And of course, he did throw on the last play of the game a 69-yard pass, which was the longest recorded pass in like NFL history or something ridiculous. I mean, this guy's got an absolute fucking cannon. But key point is, they don't want to take the risk of him really tearing up his elbow. It's like a pitcher who's out there with like throwing like 93-mile-an-hour sliders, torquing their arm, and then also just rips and he's done for 16 months. So I think they could be careful here. And this is where you have to monitor this game. Case Keenum is the backup. If Case Keenum plays, I'm not sure how much this necessarily becomes a Minnesota side. Guy in the chat, my guy Jacob Jones, says Case Keenum revenge game. Jay and I were talking about this.
He's already on it. Sorry.
Case Keenum has motivation against Minnesota specifically. So if Josh Allen is going to go out against any opponent in this schedule, the best one from a motivational standpoint is Minnesota. And you also get Stephon Diggs to add that motivation against his old team. And final point here, as Jay said, Minnesota is just scorching hot. They're in a dub 6. They're not sustainably going to run the table. They played a lot of lackluster opponents. We talked about this last week. Detroit, New Orleans, Chicago, Miami with a backup, Arizona, and Washington. Mostly non-playoff teams, backup quarterbacks, not representative of quality opponents. The only quality opponent on the road they've played all year was at Philadelphia. They got their ass kicked 24-7. I think Minnesota has it coming to them this week. I'm willing to lay this out with Josh Allen if he plays. I'm also willing to take a new line, and I don't mean I'm taking 2 units. I'm waiting till Sunday. If this gets out to a pick 'em, I will be taking Buffalo with Case Keenum starting this game as well.
With significance, my guys. Yeah, and I'm just looking to see if it's a primetime game. It could be that simple. Primetime cousins, bring your ass out here, man. No, I'm with you. They've been teetering on the loss. I fully believe the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the NFL. Doesn't mean they'll win every single game, but this could be a turnover spot. It could be somewhat of this is new age. These are new players here, guys. This is a new generation here. If Josh Allen is out, it could be the same thing in the NBA. Oh, it's not as big of a game anymore. Oh, we're not going to take the game as serious. Oh, it's going to be easy, and they can really mess with your motivation. In my opinion, I think it's maybe even a better look if Allen is not out there. And to be all perfectly honest with you, with them having Super Bowl aspirations, I don't think he's going to play. That's just me personally, my own 2 cents. You're really trying to get to the Super Bowl. One game doesn't matter. The longevity matters. See what I'm saying? And with that being said, you're probably not going to force him out there. I mean, he could get hit any type of way, wrong way in the elbow. You're probably going to want him to rest, guys. This is the guy, their future for their team. So he's really even bigger than this year. He is the future of the Buffalo Bills, but this team is really gunning for a Super Bowl this year. I think they're going to get it. I think he might sit out this one. But my guard Shark is saying, personally, I think it might be even better look, Shark. That's how I felt about the Magic yesterday. If McCarroll's out, that's even better. Now they don't even care about the game even more, man. So I can understand the lean with the Bills there, Shark. Can we please talk about this game? Please, can we talk about this game, man? We got the Titans here laying 2.5 points versus the Denver Broncos. Are we riding with Broncos country? What does Russell Wilson say? Let's ride. Broncos country, let's ride. Are we riding with Russell Wilson coming off a bye week here, Shark?
I think so. And I'm actually going to probably buy a Broncos hat after we get off this broadcast, because this is a great, great look on this beautiful Week 10 Sunday it will be. And you're looking at a lot of stuff here. Jay's getting hyped on it. That is the signature look, and I fucking love it. And what we're looking at here, you're looking at Tennessee. Tennessee is 6-0 ATS in their last 6 ball games. And again, you have to go down this qualifier stuff. This team is not covering ball games against top opponents. Vegas at home in week 3. Indianapolis just fired their coach, just changed their quarterback week 4. At Washington, goal line pick. Very easily could have not covered that game. Indianapolis again. Houston, horrendous. And last week, catching the aforementioned Chiefs, where they don't function very well, as a home significant favorite. Malik Willis coming back here. Home game 1 for this guy. He's played 2 road games at Houston and at Kansas City. He's 2-0 ATS as a starter in this league. both as a significant underdog. Now it flips to home game one for him, pressure packed, and as a favorite. Total environmental shift. And one crucial point here, when you look at Denver, Denver is the definition of a bye team. Denver has lost so many tight games this year. A 1-point loss at Seattle, an overtime loss against Indianapolis at home, overtime loss at Chargers, tight one to the Jets. And the final point in this game, which I think is a great statistic to look at, the point differential.
Some sharp shit right there.
This is great stuff. Denver is 3-5 overall, and their point differential is -9. Tennessee is 5-3 overall, and their differential is -11. So Denver is 2 games worse in the standings with a better point differential and almost the exact same. So what that tells you from a cross-referencing data perspective, where you look at 2 different metrics and you weight them versus each other, Denver should improve versus everyone, and Denver should improve very specifically versus a direct opponent such as Tennessee that also should be plummeting in the same environment. Best look on the board for us here. We're at 3 and 2.5. Jay, alignment, I believe.
Man, I'm on this shit, guys. I mean, I guess you could say that this is a 2-unit special from me, my guys. I believe my first ever 2-unit special in the NFL, guys. I'm all over the Broncos here, man. One thing I really started to, it's real simple with me, guys. Main thing I started to notice in football, this works for college football or NFL. When the defense is on the field for, I'd say, over 70, 75 plays, that's the point where it's getting to, you guys have been on the field forever. These guys, obviously, the game went to overtime. They almost beat the Chiefs in a huge underdog spot. It's a huge turn-up spot, and it also could be a huge letdown as well, coming so close to winning that game and then losing, right? Remember, they still kind of Tannehill maybe in or out. I don't think it matters here. I think everyone's going to hop on the Titans. They've been scorching hot against the spread, 6-2 on the season, but like Stark says, 6-0 straight up. Everyone's going to want to take them. I see 75% of the public right now on them. And everything, but the line's going the other way. You get some reverse line movement here. You get some sharps here on the Broncos. The team is due to come up 91 plays on the field for the defense for the Titans last week, guys. That's damn near 100 plays, guys. Damn near double how much the average is, which is around 50 plays. 91 plays. I see their defense running on fumes here in the second half of this game. I wouldn't be surprised the Broncos covered a trifecta on their team total. I think the Broncos win this game. I took them +3 and on the money line at +130. Still 2s out there, 2.5. Money line +115. You could take the points or whatever, but I'll go official with Broncos +2.5. We sprinkling on the little J Money sprinkle on that money line, my guys. But I'm all over Broncos here. My top play of the week. I probably end up playing the Broncos, but there are some other plays I might sprinkle on. But Broncos, in my opinion, definitely the top look of the NFL Week 10 slate, my guys. Let's go, Broncos country. Let's ride. I'm right there with Russell Wilson on this shit. And they're coming off a bye week, way more rested team, due to come up. Yeah, Broncos for me in this one. Let's go over here to the streets of Vegas, man. I can't stand this freaking Raiders team. Sorry, got the Raiders laying 5, going up against the Colts here. They're getting 5 points here with a kind of makeshift head coach here. I think this guy has maybe coached high school football. You got Saturday coming in here, the old center for them. What do you think about this game, my guy? Can the Colts, can they rally around their team? Or the Raiders just trash? What are we doing?
Well, we're looking at this again, and this seems to be a theme of this broadcast, and it's a very noteworthy theme. The Raiders have clustered road games in the first half of the season. They have a lot of home games coming up. They've only played 3 home games so far this year, and they are 2-1 ATS. And you do get this team coming off of a non-cover sequence on the road the last 2 weeks. They are now 0-5 on the road and 1-4 ATS on the road. However, again, this is where they seem to function well. And you go back to a couple out-of-division environments, specifically one a couple weeks ago, which we just mentioned before, the game against Houston in Week 7, Sunday, October 23rd. Absolute blowout, 38-20. It was the AFC South traveling west. It was a lackluster team with Houston traveling west. It was a very similar line. Vegas was laying about 7 points in that game. They're laying 6 here. As you mentioned, a lot of disarray for the Colts here. This is a Colts team with Jeff Saturday plugged in. out of nowhere. I mean, the guy was on
Mhm.
ESPN last week, and this is not going to be the type of hire that goes great. I mean, I think this is like kind of what we always say about LeBron and his late career, getting to family and friends. I think Jim
Mhm.
Irsay, family and friends, comfortability. Frank Reich was not Jim Irsay's guy. Jeff Saturday is.
Yes.
So this is just a comfortable move for him. This is not necessarily the best professional move for him. And again, I think Josh McDaniels and the boys need to win this game. They're 2-6. This is a professionalism showcase game. They've lost a lot of tight games. They're better at home. I'm looking at the Raiders here with significance.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, I can't. I won't bet it, so you can cash with it, Shark. Raiders and the Cardinals. I can't stand those two teams. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm standing so far away from their games. But yeah, no real play caller for the Colts. That's why this line shot up from 2 to 6. It did come back down to 5, but be interested to see how that Colts offense is going to look over there. They were already lackluster. Now you don't really have anyone calling the plays. So with that said, let's go over here to the streets of LA. Here we got the Rams laying 1.5 points versus the Cardinals here, Shark.
Tough game here. I have the hat on because I just like the look. This is definitely not a buy hat. However, I do think the Rams would be the lean in this game. I mean, I think Arizona, in my opinion, is in more disarray than the Raiders. Again, Simba in the chat disagreeing with on the Raiders. And the key point here, which I think, Simba, you got to look at, just how many road games that team has played. At home, they're a different team. So just keep that in mind. At home, they're a different team. And I think Arizona is more problematic than the Raiders, because Arizona is not good anywhere. Arizona is not good at home, and they're not good on the road. And you look at what's going on here, coming in off yet another really lackluster performance last week, a game we had incorrectly. And I don't regret anything really, but I do think that maybe I should have looked into a little more detail, really the psychology of this team, because I was watching a clip that came out. And I think that I'm not sure if Hard Knocks started in season or what's going on with that. Maybe it did, but it was a clip between DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray on the sideline, basically just suggesting there's no chemistry. They're not on the same page. And truthfully, what we've been saying all season, and I think was a mainstream media point in the summertime, is that Kyler Murray is just a really enigmatic, egotistical player who had to have some sort of stipulation put into his contract to make him watch film because he said he already knows what's going to happen. Well, Kyler, bro, apparently you don't. Your team is 3-6, and you guys have been very, very lackluster, and I'm not sure it's going to change. And I think one specific corollary here is at Seattle, Cardinals loss, came home revenge division, another loss, same game by 10 points. So you go back to this hat, early season week 3, home loss 20-12. I think that could replicate itself and repeat again this week. I would be leaning the Rams. I think the Rams need to show some uptick. Obviously, Super Bowl champs, lackluster. Rams spot, if anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. Stafford is in concussion protocol. Be interested to see if he can play in the game. Definitely keep an eye on that one, my guys. Let's go over here to the streets of Green Bay here. We got the Packers getting plus 4.5 points at the house versus the Cowboys. Packers have been straight ass this year. Cowboys have been really good. Mike McCarthy revenge game. First time going back to Green Bay since being fired, Shark. Do you think that the Cowboys come in here with significance?
Yeah, I do. And I'm looking at Dallas with significance. And I know Simba and I will agree with that one. And maybe I'll be ordering a Dallas. I could use a Dallas hat. I saw a sick pinstripe Dallas hat with a big star on it. I've been scouting Dallas hats since the preseason. It might be the week to make a nice purchase here. But, when you look at Green Bay, again, I've been saying this all year. I faded Green Bay, I believe 3 or 4 times this year, but Green Bay is just sustainably lackluster. They're 3-6, and they fit into that same category as Arizona, where ultimately I don't think they're trying to improve. I don't think they're capable of improving. And Green Bay has 3 wins on the campaign, 27-10 against Chicago. Chicago divisional road game early season, not their spot. At Tampa Bay obviously horrendous to start the season, 14-12. Basically a coin flip game down the stretch, and then a very unimpressive game against New England in Bailey Zappe's first career appearance, which again is not representative of some sort of playoff game here. And you really get a great spot to buy Dallas. Dallas has lost 3 consecutive games to Green Bay in the Dak Prescott era. I'm sure Simba knows this. All 3 games were played in Dallas. 1 was in the playoffs. Key point here. Dallas, key point here. Green Bay scored over 30 points in all those games. this is where this team really struggles this year, scoring points. And I draw you back to Dak Prescott's rookie year. The only time he's played a game in Lambeau, he did perform well. 30-16 win, Dallas as an underdog there. This is the first time in a long time Green Bay has not been favored at home. The line is telling you a big-time Dallas story. 3X revenge, where Dak functioned well before. He will remember that. And I think this is just a buy spot for Dallas this week.
Yeah, and speaking of bye spots, they're coming off a bye week as well to get prepared for this game as well. The Cowboys have been smoking hot, man. I don't think it's one of those smoking hot where it's unsustainable. They've been lackluster for years now, ever since the 90s. So when this team gets a chance to turn up, we know that they have a really good defense. The offense is playing well as well. The Packers are in a rut, guys. They're not playing well. This team actually sucks this year. You know what I'm saying? They've lost 5 straight games, and they've only covered one of the past 6 as well. So yeah, and they're coming off 3 straight road games as well, and they're at the risk disadvantage. Cowboys should smoke these guys, man. I sure hope they do. I can't stand those Packers. But last game up, Shark. Sunday Night Football. We got the 49ers here, land 7 points versus the LA Chargers here. It's tough spot here, tough game. How are we looking at this one, my brother?
As you said, tough game. I mean, the Chargers here are in a unique travel environment. It's definitely not an advantageous one. Sunday, November 6th last week, push late 20-17 over Atlanta. Now you come back to the West Coast. However, outside of the conference, outside of the division, not a lot of stuff to compare this to. Their only other road sequence of the year, they did basically push a game at Cleveland in the back end of that in week 5, 30-28. The line that week hovered from roughly around a pick'em, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. I think the moral of the story here is I think this game is going to be crazy sharp on the number. And I know people like to gamble on Sunday Night Football. Unfortunately, sometimes the game is just not the spot. Going to the San Francisco side of this game, again, not a lot of corollaries here. They've only played a couple home games. Again, the theme of this broadcast, teams switching their schedule. This is only their 4th home game. 2 divisional spots, 2 covers, blowouts against Seattle and Los Angeles, 1 game outside of the division against Kansas City. That's more symptomatic of Kansas City, as we suggested before, being 3-0 ATS with authoritative blowouts at the NFC. There's not really a corollary here. I think Los Angeles being sharp on the number in the second road game is probably the sharpest take, which does lead you to basically right around a 7-point game, unfortunately, for those who want to bet this game.
Yeah, I can't bet this game. I do think the Chargers are due to come up. I think Herbert is one of the new face of the NFL, but the 49ers sitting at only 4-4. They've been lackluster. I could see the Niners getting this win by 3 or 4 points. I don't necessarily think. I know they have a really good run offense. Chargers defense isn't bad. I just kind of see a close game here where it's 3 or 4 points either way. If the 49ers don't really have the offense that they can really just blow you out with, in my opinion. They even had to come back last week versus the Rams. They had got down in that game, if I'm not mistaken, with 14-0, then come back and outscoring 31 on Nestor. It was something like that. They were losing the game, then came all the way back and then smoked them. So this 49ers offense, it's a tough game for you, man. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers lose the game, but keep it within 3 or 4 points, my guys. So it's not something that I'm betting. If you're betting it, hey, best of luck. I always say bet what you absolutely love. But hey, man, let's talk about some shirts real quick, guys. We have $10 off the shirts, Jay and Shark shirts, guys. You can show some support, man. We do this shit every single day, 6-7 days a week, man. My guy Shark as well, man. It's not just me. So it's support both of us. My guy Shark gets 50% of the proceeds. Go get a shirt, man. $10 off. Use promo code WIN10. The Jay and Shark shirt is only $15, and you get a free pair of shades. You only got 2 more days for this deal. Also, we have Smack City shirts, Us Against the Bookies, and Let's Get Some Cash shirts, guys, over at jmoneyismoney.com. All shirts, $10 off. Use promo code WIN10. Jay and Shark shirt only. We like cash fast, only $15. You get a free pair of shades with it as well, my guys. Now let's get to some free picks. Shark, what you liking on the card?
Well, as we suggested, the top look that we're going to give out right now is the Denver Broncos on the road, and it's 2.5 now. Get that. It's getting steam the other direction. This could get down to 1.5 by kickoff time. We're looking with significance at the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road to fade a sustained fade environment, which is the Chiefs at home. Looking at the Bills in some format, obviously don't bet that now. A lot of question marks with the quarterback situation. we are looking at the Browns, the Giants, Pittsburgh with significance, Cowboys with significance, maybe the Raiders, and I believe that's it in terms of the leans. This will be finalized on Sunday. Of course, if you guys watched the show last week, I didn't put officials out. But, it's a key point. Jay and I were talking about this. Sometimes for us, it's easier for us to just give the deep analysis and not worry about official play, $500, this, and that. I think it's a big fallibility point. Sometimes when we don't really put a lot of money on it, we might actually feel less pressure and give you better analysis. So I want to make this about gambling Twitter. People always say, you're not putting a big banger on it. You didn't even look at the fucking game. You know what? Sometimes us putting less money on the game actually means you're getting better analysis because we feel less pressure in our own bank account. We think more clearly. And last week I went 8-1-2. It was my best week of the season. If you watch the show, all advisory points went 8-1-2. And this week we'll probably have 2 officials at about 7 advisory points. And it is 9 words of fucking lifestyle. Rod, the way we got to water. Jay Money, a pleasure. Close them out and let's dominate.
It's always a pleasure, man. Like one of my guys said in the chat earlier, looking at my bank account with significance. But yeah, man, 2 units special for me. We ride with Broncos country. Broncos plus the 2.5. I also think it's worth the money line play. It's either going to get blown out or they're going to win this game in blowout fashion. I think it's the latter here. Broncos coming off a bye week. Titans way too high. Obviously, quarterback ambiguity, but regards to that, 91 plays their defense was on the field. An absolute fade spot here in the fourth quarter. Their defense will be running on fumes, in my opinion, here, and really banged up. Give me the Broncos here, who also have a really good defense, and I do believe they have the tools to at least slow down Derrick Henry over there and Malik Willis or Tannehill, my guys. I actually would like for Tannehill to come back. Give me an even better line here, and I'll take the money line again. Broncos special plus the 2.5, 2 units special. I believe my first ever 2-unit special in the NFL. Honorable mentions, things I hadn't bet yet, but I still would like them. I still lean ATL minus 2.5 tonight on Thursday. Lean Jaguars as well plus 9.5 versus the Chiefs. I lean to the Browns plus 3.5 versus the Dolphins. Wouldn't be surprised they got the outright win there. And lean the Giants as well minus the 4.5. And also lean the Cowboys as well minus 4.5 coming off the bye week. We like these teams coming in rested off bye weeks, especially that have a sustained bye, my guys. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. If y'all can go get a shirt, like I say, showing support to myself and Shark, it makes us want to do it even more. You see what I'm saying? So I don't see why you wouldn't. jmoneyismoney.com. We will win, my guys. Let's get some cash. It's us against the bookies, man. We out. We back next week. Back tomorrow with more NBA plays as well. Hit the like button, subscribe, retweet if you can, my guys. Tell your friends and family about the show. We out. Let's get this cash, baby.